Hey guys, welcome back. You may have seen DTIL's share price surge yesterday. What is DTIL? What is it that they announced yesterday? How did that affect their share price? Where do I see their share price going? Should you buy now? We'll get into all of that. I bought DTIL a couple of weeks ago along with Sangamo while I was trying to decide which one to buy. I just bought both of them. They're really inexpensive right now. So this is what is responsible for their sudden surge in the stock price. They announced that the FDA had accepted their application for an investigational new drug to study their CD19 stealth cell is what they're calling it. I love that name actually, stealth cell. It's very descriptive of what is happening here. I'm going to try to explain their product here and why this is so important and thus the increase in their stock price. To do that, we're going to do just a quick biology lesson about T cells. So there are certain types of T cells that are called killer T cells, and that's because that's what they do. They kill cells that are infected or abnormal like cancer cells. The way that happens is they have a B cell comes along that says, there's some new protein here that we haven't seen before. It digests that and then displays part of that on its cell surface so that then a T cell can come along and recognize that, hey, there's something different about this B cell, what's going on with it. They then process that new protein and become specific for that new viral protein or new cancer protein. Well, then those T cells go out in search of that new protein that's being displayed on the cells, and they then can kill those cells. So if we're talking about cancer, the T cells, they secrete certain products that are harmful to that abnormal cell and kill it. Thus, they're called killer T cells. So the next step in understanding this investigational new drug application is to understand about what CAR T cells are. So a normal T cell has a T cell receptor that it would normally express on its surface. There are many companies working on this process, including Precision Biosciences. What Precision Biosciences has come up with is a way to knock out that normal T cell receptor and replace it with the receptor that they would like the cell to express that can be specific for a cancer cell. Now, ideally, it would be nice to do this with a patient's own cells, and that process can be performed, but it is rather lengthy, and it requires a new process for each new patient each time. With millions of patients affected by a given type of cancer, you can see that that's not really very feasible and would be very costly. So companies have come up with an allogenic approach, which means using a donor's blood cells to create this process of the CAR T cell. Now, using donor cells comes with its own challenges. Our own immune systems are going to recognize those donor cells as foreign and try to kill them. So there's ways of trying to deal with that, which usually involves chemotherapy. The idea is to try to get as much time under this curve, the parts that are colored, to get as much time there before your body can kill off these donor cells, for them to do their work and kill off the cancer cells. It's this little mini battle taking place inside your body. So companies in their studies will dose patients with chemotherapy to try to reduce the patient's own immune system so that these new cells that they're going to inject into the patient will be able to fight the cancer. Nobody wants to go through chemotherapy. We've all known people who have done it, and they're miserable. So this is where all the buzz came in yesterday about Precision Biosciences. What if you could create a CAR T cell that would still express this protein on it that would recognize the patient's cancer, but wouldn't be recognized by the patient's immune system as being foreign, and thus you could avoid having to give them chemotherapy ahead of the treatment? Well, Precision Biosciences is investigating this. They have come up with a way of decreasing the amount of a certain protein called anti-beta 2 on the surface of these CAR T cells. Now, they don't eliminate it totally. They bring it down to about 10% of the normal level. And that then helps to avoid rejection by the CAR T cells in the patient that would recognize this and say, oh, whoa, this is foreign. Now, the body is really smart, and it knows that sometimes there are cells running around with reduced levels of this anti-beta 2 microglobulin. And so it also has cells called natural killer cells that can say, oh, wait a minute, that cell's not normal, let's kill it. So what they have also done is they've placed a decoy protein on it, this transgenic HLA-E, so that the natural killer cells hopefully won't recognize it as foreign as well. That's the buzz, this stealth cell. So it's important for you to understand that this is just an investigational new drug acceptance by the FDA. Now, what is investigational new drug? So currently in the United States, the federal law requires that a drug has to be approved before it can be transported and distributed across state lines. This investigational new drug application is a way of getting an exemption for that requirement. So a company, when they are developing a drug, will have two real goals, early goals anyway. One is to make sure that this is going to be reasonably safe for initial use in humans. And the second is to really make sure that the drug that they're developing actually has some therapeutic effect on some disease. The FDA's role in this process begins when the manufacturer of a drug decides that it doesn't cause toxicity in animals and that they want to test it on humans. When that happens, the status of this new drug changes and it becomes subject to the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. The company will submit the investigational new drug application to the FDA, of course with all of the data that the FDA can review. The company has to wait 30 days before they can initiate the start of their clinical trial, and during that time the FDA has an opportunity to review that application and to approve it. So that is essentially what Precision Biosciences was announcing, that they have been approved to start their phase 1 clinical trial. Now, the thing to understand about clinical trials is that this is not a rapid process. I know with the current pandemic and the vaccinations that have been coming out, it may look like it can be rapid, and in an emergency, certainly the FDA granted emergency use for these vaccines, understanding that they haven't been tested in thousands and millions of people. So these drugs go through years of preclinical development where a company is testing it and refining it. Then they get to that investigational new drug application, this timeline right here, before they can start phase 1, and that's really just being tested on a few patients. They start out with just a few. You know, this one says months, but oftentimes it's going to be at least 12 months, a year, before they even know the phase 1 outcome. If that outcome is favorable, well, then they can go on to phase 2, which might be more months or years. They do that in more people. If that looks good, well, then they can go on to testing it in even more and more and more people in a phase 3 trial. At that point, if it still works and is still safe, then they can get FDA approval along this line here. But even still, phase 4 testing goes on because we don't necessarily know what the effect will be in millions of people until we get to that point. All along the way, the investigation of a drug can be stopped if it, 1, proves to be ineffective, or 2, proves not to be safe. So now you know why the DTIL, or Precision Biosciences, stock price went up yesterday. They released that the FDA had approved that they had been accepted for beginning their phase 1 clinical trial. It was quite a jump. It was, again, around 25 to 30%. You'll notice that the market is already open and the stock price is coming down. I would not be surprised to see that price continue to come down. In fact, I expect it to. Now, don't get me wrong, just because I think the stock price is going to decline in the next little bit does not mean that I have lost faith in this company. As I said earlier, I invested in this a couple of weeks ago along with Sangamo. I think that this company has some proprietary ways of doing their gene editing that is different than others, and they're the only ones that can do it, in the method that they use. So I will show you that in an upcoming video. We'll talk about what else this company is working on and why I think that this company is a buy, especially at this price. But you might want to hold off a few days before you buy it because, again, I think the price is coming down. I hope this was helpful for you in understanding why the price of Precision Biosciences took a sudden leap upward. If it was, please give us a thumbs up, and we'd love to have you as a subscriber. And I'd also love it if you'd leave some comments down below, letting me know what you did or didn't like about this presentation, and especially if you have some questions that you'd like me to answer for my next video, taking a deeper dive into Precision Biosciences. Until next time, enjoy your investing.